You're listening to The Real Deal Conversations, a podcast designed to encourage, inspire, and equip you by sharing real stories and meaningful conversations that bring real life to the surface. I'm your host, Megan Deal. Let's dive in. I have Jack Simpson, head coach of Parkview High School.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I am so excited, and I'm excited to hear your heart. I'm excited to hear, your passion, and I'm ready to rally for this basketball season. What inspired you to become a basketball coach? And before you answer that, tell me a little bit about your background in basketball and coaching.
Yeah, so I played, obviously, since I was 2 or 3 years old, basically since I could walk, it feels like.
Yeah.
I played, and I had a okay career, I guess you could say. I was never the most athletic kid or the tallest by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably picked the wrong sport, to be honest, in the grand scheme of things. But I graduated from Kickapoo. I was able to play 4 years at Kickapoo, which I don't tell anybody anymore since now I'm at Parkview. But so I played all 4 at the varsity level at Kickapoo, and then I went on and played in college for 2 years. And then I actually got into coaching my last 2 years. And then in coaching wise, I didn't really know I was getting into it until I got done with my playing experience. My coach in college actually got let go, and then I kind of knew it was time for me to move on as well. And then I coached at local high schools. I went to Milliken in Illinois, which is in Decatur, a little, central Illinois town. So
I'm from Illinois.
Oh, really? What part?
Belleville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're probably familiar with Decatur. So yeah, I graduated from Milliken, and I coached at Argenta Orienta and Mount Zion, but both. One when I was a junior, and then the other when I was a senior. Then I graduated, and I didn't know that I was going to get into coaching or teaching. My degree is not in education. It's actually in communications.
Okay.
Which is interesting. But
so this is perfect.
Yeah, I've done a couple. So, and then I came home, and just like every other college kid that played sports their whole lives, they have no clue what's coming next. And I didn't. And one of my previous coaches from Kickapoo, who is now the head coach at Hillcrest, Jordan Fielding, kind of reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have this position." And I didn't have a job. Actually, that's a lie. I did. I worked at Pizza Hut delivering pizzas. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I became the building sub at Hillcrest. And I was like, I want to teach. And so I ended up testing into social studies. And I was a social studies teacher my first year, not at Hillcrest, actually. I did 1 year at Hillcrest, and COVID hit. And then my first year teaching was in Carrollton, Missouri, which is about 3 hours north. And so I did 1 year in Carrollton where I was the head basketball coach and first year teacher. I really wanted to be a head coach for some reason. And then I came home and so I did 1 year in Carrollton. I got the head job at Springfield Catholic. And then in the last 3 years, I've been I'm going on year 3 at Parkview. I have flipped into PE instead of social studies, which has been a very big blessing for me. But yeah, so it's been a unique ride, but it's kind of been my journey. So
yeah, that's awesome. I love that. You have a lot of history with basketball, and yeah, that's awesome.
Especially my coaching career. I feel like I've got a lot of stops, short period of time. So I'm hoping to stay put for at least a little bit over at Parkview.
Well, what keeps you passionate?
The biggest thing, honestly, is just the kids, and I know that sounds pretty cliche, but, it's what makes the job fun.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like the winning or the losing, but it's like the impact. And honestly, my favorite moments of my day are a lot of our kids eat lunch in our office. Like we have a coach's office, and a lot of our players come in and they eat lunch with us.
That's awesome.
And they hang out with us, and we talk about, boy stuff. I guess you could say, but awesome. It is fun.
It's like an extra level of community.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And I like that you open yourself up to giving them that level of community.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
It's just, it's really about relationships.
Yeah.
And I think maybe because I'm a young coach, we have a young staff over at Parkview, and, but I hope to continue that. I hope it's always like that for me, my players, because they're the ones that keep me coming back.
Yeah. What's so cool is in this series, each one of you so far has said something that strikes me as just wonderful, and I think it would be so cool for like younger coaches who are listening or people who want to coach if they could just take from each one of you, because everything you guys say is different, and just like I don't know, just glean all the wisdom from you guys, because I love that community. Jamie had some things that he said, Blancet and Mitch is coming on. And I hope you guys take the different pieces that are unique, like you creating that sense of community, things that are not the average for the courts, and just kind of compile it and put it in your toolbox as a young coach.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested to listen to the other coaches because obviously we compete against each other, but I know those guys probably do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that I don't know about that I'm like, hey, I might steal that idea, just to build relationships or do, things that, maybe they're good at that I've never thought of.
Yeah. And always be learning and growing.
You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is the role of mentorship in your coaching style, and who were your mentors?
Yeah, so I've actually just been super blessed. A lot of good mentors. There's a couple that come to mind, really three. So I grew up in a single family household, mom only, and my mom's a great lady. She played the male part great as well. Like, I'm so blessed. Obviously, having male role models is super important for young men. And I had three, like I said, that come to mind off the top of my head whenever it comes to coaches. My high school coach, Dick Rippey, who's now retired. He moved down to Arkansas and Bentonville, but he coached for a long, long time. And, something that Coach Rippey has done probably better than almost anyone is, this guy still texts me all the time.
That's awesome.
Hey, Jack, how you doing? Anything you need from me, and just always like reaching out, and just being there for me, which I think is great. The other one is Preston Ingram, who's from Springfield. He actually graduated from Parkview, but he's now the head coach at Maryville in St. Louis. And, he's the same way. He actually just came down and spoke to our high school kids and just gave them a little bit of wisdom about college athletics and that type of thing. But he's always, hey, you want to come down, watch practice, how's family doing? How's mom doing? It's always just so much deeper than basketball, and then the last one was Robbie Anders, who passed away recently. And he had a huge impact on me and honestly who I am today. Probably, the toughness, the energy, hey, let's wake up and let's get something done. That was Rob, and I miss him greatly. But just thinking about him and those experiences that I took from him, like I was blessed just to even get to be around Rob. So those three guys, I was super blessed to have three great mentors, and hopefully, I'll be one of these kids' mentors one day that want to get into coaching, but if they don't want to get into coaching, get into life, because life has a lot of obstacles.
And I love that you're looking at the future relationships and the goals, and, for those kids. That's awesome that you have vision for mentorship. So what is a memorable moment from your coaching journey that shaped how you lead your team today?
That's a great question. That's something I would really have to think about. I think it's more about like almost like the off court stuff, than the on court. Like, I've been fortunate, to win some games and to, have some success on the court as far as that goes. But it's almost like, especially now where I'm at Parkview, Parkview's a lot different than Springfield Catholic whenever you talk about the kids and the clientele and, their economic status and that type of thing. And so I think, shaping me who I am today, I've had to almost put myself in some of these kids' shoes that, may not have mom or dad at home, may not have either at home, may live in a completely different experience, and kind of give me a different perspective on who those kids are. And, I'm most likely going to see more kids that are similar to them, in my career. And so how can I help these kids? How can I benefit them?
Yeah, because I don't know somebody and I were talking, it was one of the previous episodes, but the amount of time they spend with you is a lot. And so like even if you don't even realize it, not you specifically, but coaches, they spend a lot of time with you guys. And so the ones who don't have, great family settings, or like, you are their second, you're that.
It's hard to explain to people that don't necessarily work in education or in the school setting, but the amount of time, like you just said, is really unbelievable. It's probably more time they spend at home a lot of times, you know, and that's okay with me. You know, like I said, I love these kids, or I wouldn't be doing it, but you do have a huge impact and you may not even know it sometimes.
100%, which leads me into the next question, which is, how do you help your players not only become better athletes, but also better individuals off the court?
I think it's all about like experience. So like as things happen, you know, hey, this isn't the right thing, or this is the right thing, this, that, and the other. One thing that I'm very big on is like checking grades, you know, and making sure, hey, well, coach, this is dumb. You know, I don't need this. This isn't going to help me. I'm not doing this. And I'm just like, look, you're doing this to get to where you want to get to, you know, and whatever that is, you know, I just think about, like, I have just a couple kids that come to mind. You know, one of my kids, he actually just completed, he's a senior this year. He's been going to OTC, and, you know, his dream is to play college basketball like most of these guys, but it may or may not happen for him, you know, but he actually just completed, he just got certified to be a mechanic in the shop at OTC. And, you know, and you might be able to put this on there, you might not, and I don't think he'll mind me sharing this, but 3 years ago when I got the job, he was a freshman. And when I took the job, I actually, that summer, I got a call from a local police officer and said, hey, is so-and-so one of your players? And I said, I think so. Like, I hope so. I was like, why? And he was like, well, I just want to let you know, like, he runs with local youth gangs, you know, here in Springfield. And I know his background in the situation wasn't great, but I feel like he has overcame that. And I hope I played a small part in it, you know, but he's one of those kids where I can like pinpoint and be like, you know, like, that's why you're here, you know, is to help make a difference. And I think it came back to holding him accountable for his grades, making sure he's coming to school, doing the little things in day to day. And the next thing you know, he's certified to be a mechanic, and he has a future and you know, something to, you know, to live for. Like I said, that's one kid's story, and he's a special kid. I don't know if I've ever seen as much growth in a young man as I have him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, oh man, that gets my heart. I mean, you know, I work at Big Brothers Big Sisters, and so I know, like, those are kids we serve, are, you know, and so it just takes one person. It takes one person to consistently care. And that's so cool. I love his story. I can't wait to see where he goes, or, you know what I mean? That's so cool.
Yeah. It's, you know, his story, like I said, is interesting. Like, you know, you talk to, you know, administrators at school, and you know, they tell me like, hey, freshman year to senior, like,
so cool.
It's a night and day difference. And, you know, and he's making strides and doing the right things. And like I said, I think, you know, just kind of the way we run our program and just trying to hold these kids accountable in the little things of life, that I think it's hopefully made a difference for them. So
that's awesome. Well, how do you foster a team culture that encourages personal growth, community amongst each other? Because it can get competitive, even. I mean, even with teammates. So, how do you foster that team culture environment? Yeah,
I think this is probably the toughest question that you can ask a coach, and I'm still learning. Like, I don't know if I have the perfect system, quote unquote, but you know, we always talk about, you know, doing what's best for the team. You know, in a world where is very individualized, you know, and you hop on social media and everything is me, you know, how can you get that out of a 14, 15-year-old kid's mind? Like, and even putting myself in these kids' shoes, like, I was the same way. I wanted to score. I wanted to be in the newspaper, you know, I wanted the spotlight, you know, and so I try to remember that whenever I'm thinking like, oh, why did Johnny take that terrible shot? You know, like, he didn't want to miss, you know, but you know, so it's trying to find ways to create team atmospheres, which, you know, we do like team bonding stuff. You know, we'll have my wife will have the whole family over for Thanksgiving dinner.
So cool.
And do things of that nature. It just kind of brings you together. Yeah. You know, so
I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's a very tough question, though.
Yeah. But I love your answer. That is so, you don't have to do that. You don't have to have them over for dinner. You don't have to have that holiday camaraderie, but you do. And I think that's so cool that you add that value.
Got to have a good wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You do. That's right. You got to have a good wife. All right. So how do you balance winning with developing the character and well-being of your players?
This is awesome because we actually just met as a coaching staff, me and my staff. And like I said, we're very young. I'm the oldest coach on staff and I'm 27. So everyone else is younger. So we always love having these conversations because it's just a great conversation to have. So, for instance, when they talk about team handbooks and what are the rules, what are the consequences, this, that, and the other. And, so like one of our like emphasis this year is showing up on time. So what does on time look like? Well, if we have practice, you need to be on the court, practice and everything, 5 minutes early, right? So, well, what if our best player doesn't show up on time right before we play a district game? Are we just going to hold them out the first quarter, to teach them a lesson? And so it's that fine line of, trying to implement good principles, good habits, character, like we tell them all the time, you don't show up on time to your job, I'll just get rid of you, so still trying to win because ultimately, if Johnny doesn't show up on time and he's your best player and you hold him out the first quarter, well, now you're punishing the whole team, so, trying to find that fine line and hopefully create good habits that is good character habits as well.
That's something we just talk about is how do you prepare them for the real world and walk that, it is a balance of what you just said, because what they're learning now, this is their last 4 years before they go into the real world. And you do have to, hey, you can't talk to people like this or you will get fired. You can't be late consistently or you will get fired. And then also remembering they are still high schoolers and and so it is. There is a balance of preparing them and also giving grace.
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
So, all right. In what ways do you encourage players to stay motivated through difficult seasons or tough losses?
I think the best way to motivate kids or to stay motivated or after a tough loss is to go back to like the relationship piece. I think about, one situation that comes to mind, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing, but it'll be okay. It was one of our kids from last year. We were playing Rogersville. We led the entire game. One of our players missed 2 free throws late. And one of the Rogersville's kids came down, hit a 3 at the buzzer. They won, rush court. Very, very tough ending. Quickest we've ever got on a bus. It was a tough way to leave. The next morning, that player texted me and said, hey, can I come in? Can I get shots up? So he came in, but we didn't get shots up. He just hopped in my truck and we went to Chick-fil-A. I bought him breakfast and we talked, and because he didn't want to miss those free throws and he can make free throws. It's not about getting shots up. It's just about trying to instill that confidence in them, maybe off the court, just through the relationship piece. I think is just one way I've done it in the past.
Because when a player does do something and they carry that, when they feel like they lost the game or something like that happens, they feel that so heavily. What do you say to them? If a player's listening now and they're somebody who holds on to mistakes and is very rough on themselves, what would you say to them for the future moments of that happening? Especially
in a situation like a game on the line, in that moment, I wouldn't say much. I would hug him because during that moment, there's not much to say. When we go back and rewatch the film, or break down the film, I would show them all the different plays that also cost us the game, and just say, hey, you missing a layup, you miss layups. It happens, and just because you can't, kids don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to make mistakes. They never do it on purpose for the most part. So they don't want to. So I think you just show them the love, the grace that they need in the moment because, like I said, you never know what kids go home to because they may not get the love and grace at home.
Exactly.
So you have to keep that in mind.
And what would you say for a athlete who their teammates are giving them a hard time? What would you say for mental performance, how to handle those situations after a loss like that and the team's upset with them? What would you say to that player to pull them out of that dark space.
Yeah, that's tough, especially coming from teammates, which they're high school kids, boys or girls, like, hey, so-and-so cost of the game, blah, blah, blah. I think I would just encourage them to stay at it, like, hey, you miss a layup, hey, let's work on it. You miss free throws, let's work on it, and just try to motivate them that way. And like, hey, everybody just wants to win, and ultimately that's kind of what it comes down to. So that's a tough situation. I think I would just try to encourage them, hey, we got to stay at it, and maybe go rebound for them, whatever, to try to lift their spirits.
I love that, because they are teenagers. They're growing, they're hormonal, and everybody wants to win. Everybody's competitive. And sometimes they just need to realize, like, people are going to talk, just shut it out and do what you can.
Right.
But that's hard,
And one thing I'll add to that, one thing I've noticed is like these kids are their own toughest critic.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is like, we talk as a staff all the time, like, hey, can we just keep everybody like happy or like level-headed, not even happy, just like level-headed where, hey, they're not upset themselves. Most of these kids just get upset at themselves. And it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. All right. So what is the most important life lesson basketball has taught you, and how do you pass that on to your players?
That's a really good question. Probably the most important life lesson that basketball has taught me is probably just to be, I think, like, accountable. When you play a team sport, it's different than like playing golf, or tennis, any sport, you're just by yourself, but when you play a team sport, people are relying on you, and I think that's kind of made me aware. And especially like when I really sit back and think about it, like in my own life, like it's just like, I got married a couple years ago, like, no kids yet, but that'll be my team. Like my wife will rely on me. So just as an individual moving forward, like it's just taught me to be accountable, and an accountable person, at least to the best of my ability. How do you pass accountability on to your players? I think accountability is like, what you require from them, basically. So, just like I said about one of our emphases is like being on time, so like, how do we hold them accountable to being on time, and just laying out those things and teaching them accountability. Like I said, especially at a place like Parkview, you can really teach these kids things that they may not know, and accountability may be it. I've had some of our players have worked at local like fast food joints, and they'll be like, yeah, coach, I'm calling in today, man, like just not feeling it. And like no, that you have a job, like you're scheduled to work 5 hours. They're counting on you. If you call in, that's affecting your coworkers. And trying to teach them that piece.
There is so much that you learn in team sports. So I did track in 8th grade, and that was it. No other sports. Daniel played basketball his whole life, still plays basketball at 5:30 in the morning. Like, he hasn't stopped. And the value he brings to so much conversation and parenting, and he always pulls it from team sports. Like, it really does bring, I'm not saying like band and stuff can, I'm not knocking it, but I'm just saying there's something about team sports that goes into your adulthood if you lean into it. If you lean into the lessons you can learn now, you'll carry that through your whole life.
Yes. I think every important lesson I've learned, quote unquote, has came from a team sport. So 100%.
So, all right. What is your approach to building confidence in players who are struggling with self-doubt? So, and this, we kind of answered this a little bit ago, helping, getting some shots up and all that. What about the mental performance aspect of it? Like getting out of your head? Like, do you have any tips or tricks and to get a player out of their head, or for even you to get out of your head?
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is a great question. I can't wait to listen to the other coaches talk about this. Hopefully you ask them the same question, because
I do.
Great. I have not solved the answer to this, because like I said, so many young men right now they're just always in their head, like always in their head. And I don't like, I'm far from a master of helping them get out of their head. Like when it comes to the sport specific thing, I always tell our kids, hey, if you're struggling to make shots, like what they always say, like preparation prevents poor performance. Like it's the oldest saying in the book, like, but it's true.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling to make shots, what's the best way to fix that? Go shoot.
Yeah.
And so I always encourage them, like whatever they're struggling with, we'll go do more of it, attack it, don't run from it, but attack it. But like I said, I'll be interested to listen to some of the other coaches and some of their ideas, because those are things I might steal.
That is what I love about this series is not only has everybody's answers, some are similar, I guess, but everybody has their own, everybody's answers are unique and everybody's been asked the same questions. And so that's why I think this is so cool, because you can, listeners, you can literally free leadership, just compile all these leaders and put every unique answer together and put it in your toolbox for coaching. I mean, that's probably been my most favorite part of this so far, is the same questions, but different answers, and all good answers.
Yeah. And just knowing some of the other coaches like that are going to come on here, like they're a lot of them are well experienced, and it's also unique because like at Parkview, I deal with different students, and like Coach Blanza does at Nixa. And so when I do have students like he deals with at Nixa, then hey, I might be able to tap into Coach Blanza and Coach McHenry and all those guys, so this would be a great series. Yeah,
I love that. How do you handle pressure and expectations, both from within your team and parents?
This is a great question. I think a lot of pressure, especially at the high school level, is like self-induced pressure almost. Like whenever I got my job at Springfield Catholic, we had 8 seniors. I knew a couple of them, very, very gifted group of athletes who I knew we would have a shot with. And actually the only reason I got the job was because I knew some of the parents and they connected me over at Springfield Catholic, and I was able to land the job. But with that, I was kind of told the whole year, that, hey, you guys have to beat Bolivar in the quarterfinal game, and thinking back, I wasn't actually told that. The year before, they had lost to Bolivar in the quarterfinal game with the same group of kids, basically. Yeah. And I think it was self-induced on my end to me, like, hey, we have to beat Bolivar. Like they lost. And at the time I was 23 years old, and, I wanted to go to the Final Four, and I wanted to do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, we have to do it. We have to do it. We have to do it. Yeah. And now that I'm a little bit older, but I know now, like, hey, that was all me pressure. That wasn't really, the parents never want to say you have to be Bolivar. They were great parents, and they handled the situation well. But I think as far as like me, like handling pressure, it's more of a, I almost have to take a step back and say, this is high school basketball. If we lose tonight, the world's still going to go on. Yep. And that's really helped me in my approach, especially being a young coach, super excited, a lot of energy, always want to win. Yeah. And so to take that step back and to realize what's going on in the real world and just, it helps me, and as far as athletes, like I said, athletes are their own biggest critic. They put so much pressure on themselves that it's like, golly, like I don't want to add any more pressure to that, and now you add in athletes that are trying to go play in college, and that's a different level of pressure. And, and some of the kids I deal with, like, if they don't go play in college, they don't go to college, and so that's a whole different outside pressure. And so, encouraging those kids to take a step back and remind them it's basketball, it's a sport, it's supposed to teach you these life lessons and these things, I think that helps. Yeah, no, that's good. I was talking to a friend today, and we were talking about the amount of pressure that teens put on themselves, people put on themselves in general, I guess, because of social media. And it's funny because she said, everybody's so worried about what everybody is going to think about them on social media, but the people that they're worried about are so focused on themselves that they don't even see those things. Like everybody's it's this cycle. It's like this mental cycle with social media. And I think that's added so much layers of stress to these kids. Well, 100%. Like even as, an adult, I think about what, Johnny is going to say about me on social media or whatever, what they say about Parkview or, like everybody reads into that stuff. Yeah. And so I can only imagine being 15, 16, 17-year-old and reading all that stuff and then comparing yourself all the time. And it's,
That's what I say a lot. I'm like, okay, at 36, if this is what something felt like at 36, exactly what you said, what does that feel like for a teen? And it has to be magnified because you've had, more years than them to kind of, get to a better place of, thoughts. And I've had, longer time to be like, oh, but it's not, even though it hurts, it's not, they've not had that time. They've not had that time to gain wisdom and learn processes. I mean, it's super fresh and raw for them. And what they feel is genuinely all they can see and feel. There's no perspective where we have perspective because of our ages.
Yep.
And even then it still sucks, like, and so that's why I'm always like, man, if it's like this, and that's hard. Like when you think about that. And so to have that perspective when talking to teens, and I think a lot of adults forget that they're still fresh in it. They've not learned to be able to manage it.
Yeah, no, that's spot on.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you stay grounded and maintain perspective during high pressure games or seasons?
No, this is a good question. I think like this is going to sound cliche almost, but like, when I put myself in high pressure situations or high pressure games and I'm actually coaching or on the sideline, like I actually remind myself to breathe sometimes. Like there's been instances where I've been coaching and I get down to the huddle and draw something up and I get up and I'm very like lightheaded and I just, I remind myself like to breathe and it helps me. Yeah. It helps me think. Yeah. It helps me keep me grounded. Like, hey, I'm in a basketball gym,
Yeah.
And those are little things, off the court, my family, my wife, my mom, like they help a lot. They constantly remind me like it's basketball, life's going to go on, or, you're going to be okay. You guys will be fine, this, that, and the other. And that helps as well. Yeah. So those are just two of the things that I can think of off the top of my head.
I love that though, because so many people, when they're aspiring to be something, they can easily sometimes take themselves out of pursuing it because they look at a coach or they look at whoever doing something and they're like, oh, it's so easy for them though.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're like, no, I have to breathe sometimes. Yeah. Like I have to, like there's still a mental aspect to this. And for people to realize like everybody's human. And no matter how long you've coached for, you still have to have your different processes to ground yourself.
Yeah.
And so I want people to be encouraged. Like if you're aspiring to be your coach and you're like, oh, but it's so easy for them or they don't get stressed or don't know. Everybody's human.
And there's some coaches like, that coach in the area, like that you look at and you're like, man, that guy I wish I could be more like him. Yeah. Like, and he's going to come on here. I don't know if he's been on yet, but like Mitch McHenry is prime example of someone like I look at Mitch when he coaches. I'm like, that guy is grounded. He's to himself. And that's what I think that's what makes him so great. And I'm like, I can't do it. I jump around, move and exhaust, but he does a great job of it. And I'm like, but you never know what he's actually thinking. So I'm interested to listen to Mitch, but he's just someone that comes to mind about an incredible coach that always looks put together. And I want to know how he does it.
Yeah. I'm gonna find out for you.
I appreciate that.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Thank you. I need his secrets.
Yes. I'll find out for you. Okay. So what advice would you give to young coaches just starting out in their careers?
Yeah, this is another great question. You have a ton of good ones because I still consider myself a very young coach. I'm only 27. This is going to be my 5th year, I guess, being a head coach. And I was an assistant for a few years before that. But I think the biggest thing is always to continue to learn. The moment that you stop learning, I think you've lost. And so I hope, and like I said, I hopefully have a long way to go in my career, but I hope I nepe lose that, never lose that mentality to keep learning, keep picking people's minds. That's why I told you I'm so excited about this podcast. But I hope that continues for me. Yeah. And in the moment that it doesn't, I think I'll be done. I think I'll be done coaching, and I think I'll kind of know. Yeah. Because I get excited to go to the clinics, the coaching clinics, but I get excited to talk to other coaches, just to hear what they do, what works for them, what doesn't, this, that, and the other. So the continuing to learn piece throughout your career, I think would probably be the thing I would tell young coaches just starting.
I love that. And that is so true. I always say, like, if I'm ever not learning, I'm in trouble.
Right.
Or like I am lifelong learner. Like always, we should always be. And I think some people think that like a pride thing, like, oh, but if I'm learning, that means I'm weaker. And it's like, no, everybody should always be learning. The best leaders are continually learning.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. All right. What legacy do you hope to leave behind as a coach on and off the court?
Yeah. I think, on the court, I think matters very small. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think my wins or losses will define me as a coach. Probably one of the biggest legacies I hope to leave is to impact these kids where they're still reaching out, where we still have relationships, mm-hmm. Whenever it's done. I obviously have goals about how many games I want to win, this, that, and the other, but none of that really matters, if my athletes never learn anything from me, and if I don't have that relationship, and I think about Coach Rippey, one of my mentors, and the cool thing about Coach Rippey is like, one of his big legacies is that in the area of high school coaches, like Mitch McHenry played for Coach Rippey, I played for Coach Rippey, mm-hmm. Coach Donnelly at Ozark played for Coach Rippey, Coach Fielding at Hillcrest played for Coach Rippey. All these guys played for Coach Rip, and he had a great impact on, mm-hmm. Who these people are and why they wanted to get into coaching. And I think that would be cool, if mm-hmm. 25 years from now, if I had 10 former players who were, mm-hmm. Coaches, I would, mm-hmm. I think I would take a lot of pride in that. Mm-hmm. And I think Coach Rip does, and I hope so. He had a huge impact on me. So that's definitely something that I think matters, mm-hmm. definitely more than wins and losses, because those come and go.
That's so good. This has been so good. This series, every time I've sat down with y'all, I just keep going, gosh, we have such good leadership. And I mean, the 417 is blessed. Like, this is so good. I love what you had to say. I love your heart. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. This was awesome. This has been incredible. I can't wait to listen to all the other coaches. Yeah. I really appreciate you having me.